I just found out my wife's affair with her boss, which she secretly kept hidden while claiming our $250, $0 inheritance was for a new home. Now she's trying to take everything in the divorce, including our inherited property worth over $500, $0. And I suspect the real reason is she was secretly planning a business deal to steal my half of the estate. I never thought I'd be the guy to catch his wife cheating, especially not with her boss. Honestly, I always believed we had a solid marriage, or at least I did. But then out of nowhere, everything started unraveling. It was like a bad movie, but I was living it. The first sign was subtle, her phone never leaving her side, even in bed. She'd get these weird calls late at night, and I'd catch her deleting messages. Small stuff, but enough to make me suspicious. Her name's Lisa. She's the kind of woman who always had an answer for everything, especially when I asked about her strange behavior. She'd brush it off, said I was paranoid, that I was imagining things. But I knew better. Women like her don't just suddenly become secretive without reason. She was bitchy. More often than not, sarcastic, dismissive when I tried to talk about the future or plans. I started noticing little things, her texting under the table, hiding her phone when I entered a room, canceling plans last minute. We had a good life, or so I thought. Our biggest asset was a $250, $0 inheritance we'd gotten from my grandmother. I insisted we use it to buy a house, build a future. Lisa played the perfect wife, pretended she was excited about the house, about settling down. She'd even talk about how she wanted to raise our kids there, how she wanted a big backyard for the dog. But behind the scenes, I was starting to notice her attitude shift. She'd get defensive when I asked about the inheritance, claiming it was just for a new home and nothing else. Then came the night I found the first real clue. I was working late, as usual, and decided to check her email out of curiosity. I'd never done that before, but something told me I should. And that's when I saw the email thread. Her boss, Mark, was texting her late at night, talking about meetings, plans, and more intimate stuff. The way they talked was blatant, even flirty at times. There were references to secret meetings, coded language about working late, but I knew what was really going on. My heart sank. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. I didn't sleep that night, just stared at the screen, replaying the words and trying to convince myself I was wrong. But I was. I knew Lisa was cheating on me. The worst part, I had no idea how long it had been going on. It could have been weeks, months, and I'd been completely blind to it. I felt betrayed, humiliated. All the trust I'd built in our marriage was shattered in that moment. I had to confront her. The next day, I brought her into the living room, my fists clenched, trying to keep my voice steady. I showed her the emails. She looked surprised at first, then pissed off, like I was invading her privacy, like I was the bad guy. She denied everything, said I was paranoid, that Mark was just a friend, a boss who was helping her with her career. She called me crazy, said I was accusing her of something I had no proof of, but I had enough. I told her I knew about the affair. Her face twisted, she spat out that I was overreacting, that I was jealous and insecure. The emotional roller coaster hit hard. I felt anger, then sadness, then pure disappointment. How could she do this? After all we'd been through, after planning our future, she was out there screwing her boss behind my back. The betrayal cut deep. I felt useless, like I'd failed as a husband, as a man. It was hard to breathe, to think straight. I kept asking myself what I did wrong, if I missed signs, if I was blind to the truth. But deep down, I knew this wasn't about my faults. It was about her choosing to lie, to cheat, to manipulate. At that point, I knew I couldn't stay silent. I had to decide what to do next. I started thinking about my inheritance, the house, how she was trying to spin it all. I suspected she was planning something bigger, maybe using her affair to get access to my money, to steal my half of the estate. That's when I realized I needed a plan. I couldn't let her just walk away with everything, especially not the inheritance I worked so hard for. I felt a burning need for justice, for revenge, even if it meant tearing her world apart. I started gathering evidence, talking to a lawyer, planning my next move. I knew I had to be smart, patient, and ruthless if I wanted to come out of this with some dignity intact. I wasn't just going to let her take everything she wanted, especially not after she betrayed me so completely. I was angry, but I also saw this as an opportunity, a chance to turn the tables and make her pay for what she did. I wasn't sure how I'd do it yet, but I knew I had to act fast. That's where I am now. Still processing everything, still trying to figure out my next move. If you've ever been in a situation where your wife cheats on you with her boss and then tries to steal your inheritance, you'll know how messed up it feels. I just want to get some clarity, maybe some advice, because right now I'm just furious and hurt. And I'm not going down without a fight. After I confronted Lisa with the emails, she didn't break down right away, but her reaction was worse than I expected. She looked at me with that smug, bitchy smirk she always had when she thought she was in control. She told me I was overreacting, that I was being paranoid, and that I had no proof of anything. She said Mark was just a good boss, that she was working late because she wanted to get ahead in her career, like that was supposed to justify her sneaking around behind my back. She kept insisting she loved me, that I was just insecure and jealous. Honestly, I wanted to punch her in the face right then, but I held back. I knew I had to keep my cool even if I was boiling inside. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying everything, her lies, the way she looked when she was lying, the way her voice changed when she was trying to hide something. I was furious, but also deeply hurt. We had built this life together, or at least I thought we did. The inheritance, the house we were supposed to buy, the plans for our future, all of it felt like a house of cards now. I started questioning everything about our marriage, about her. How long had she been cheating? Was she planning to leave me? Was she using me for my money? My mind kept racing, trying to piece it all together. The next few days were a blur. I decided I needed to get more concrete evidence. I hired a private investigator. I didn't want to be paranoid, but I needed proof that this wasn't just a one-time thing. I also reached out to a lawyer I knew, someone who specialized in divorce and inheritance cases. I wanted to understand my legal standing, especially since I suspected Lisa was planning something bigger, like trying to claim part of my inheritance or even manipulate the estate to her advantage. I found out that, in my state, inherited property was legally protected from her claims unless she was on the deed. That was a small comfort, but I knew she'd try to spin something to get her hands on it. Meanwhile, Lisa kept up her act of being the perfect, innocent wife. She'd come home late, pretend to be tired, and then give me that fake smile when I asked about her day. She lied, deny, and then get bitchy when I pressed her. The more I pushed, the more she tried to turn the tables, accusing me of spying on her, calling me controlling, saying I was just jealous of her success. I hated how she was trying to make me the bad guy when all I wanted was the truth. One night I caught her texting again, this time more openly. She slipped her phone out of her purse while she thought I wasn't looking. I saw the number was saved under a different name, and the messages were unmistakably flirtatious. She was talking about meeting Mark again, about how she'd discussed the deal with him. That's when I decided enough was enough. I couldn't keep pretending everything was fine. I needed to act fast before she made her move to take everything I had. I started planning my next steps. I knew I had to confront her again, but this time with more evidence, more leverage. I decided I'd confront her with everything I knew, then lay out my terms. Either she stopped lying and came clean, or I'd take legal action to protect my inheritance and our assets. I was also considering recording her, not just for proof but also as insurance. If she was planning to manipulate the estate or try to turn the tables, I needed to be prepared. As I sat there late one night, looking over the evidence I'd gathered, I felt a strange mixture of rage and clarity. Rage because I'd been betrayed so cruelly. Clarity because I realized I couldn't let her get away with it. She thought she was smarter than me, that she could just lie, cheat, and steal her way out of everything. But I was done being naive. I was going to fight for what was mine, for my inheritance and for my dignity. I knew this wasn't just about a cheating wife anymore. It was about a woman who was willing to lie, manipulate, and use her position to steal from me. I'd been blind for too long, but now I saw her true colors. I was ready to tear down her lies, expose her for what she really was, and make sure she paid for her betrayal. Whatever it took, I wasn't going down without a fight. The wheels were in motion, and I was determined to come out on top. Do you want me to keep going? The day I finally decided to confront Lisa again, I knew I had to be strategic. I couldn't just blurt out everything and hope for the best. I wanted her to admit something, to slip up so I could use it against her. I arranged to meet her at our usual coffee shop, pretending I wanted to talk about us, about the future. Inside, I felt a mix of nerves and rage. I knew she was lying, sneaky, planning her next move. But I also knew I had the upper hand now, with all the evidence I'd collected. When she arrived, she was her usual bitchy self, smirking, acting like she had everything under control. She ordered her coffee, threw me a quick glare, and started with the usual sarcastic comments. I kept my composure, looked her straight in the eyes, and started the conversation casually. I told her I knew about Mark, about the affair, and about her plans to manipulate the inheritance. Her face froze for a moment, then she laughed, a cold, bitter laugh that made my stomach turn. "You're crazy," she said, crossing her arms. "You have no proof. You're just jealous because I don't want to be stuck in this boring marriage anymore." That's when I pulled out my phone, played her the recordings I'd made of her texting Mark, talking about their meetings and deals. Her eyes widened for a split second, then she tried to act innocent again. She said it was just work, that Mark was helping her with her career, that I was reading too much into it. I told her I wasn't stupid anymore, that I knew she was planning to take everything, my inheritance, the house, even my savings, by lying, cheating, and manipulating. I explained I had a lawyer, that I was prepared to fight her in court. Her face turned red and she started yelling, calling me paranoid, accusing me of spying on her, of invading her privacy. She said I was controlling, insecure, and that I'd ruined everything by snooping around. I just looked at her and said, "You've been lying to me from the start. I want a divorce and I want what's rightfully mine." That's when she lost it. She stormed out of the coffee shop, screaming that I was ruining her life, that I was a terrible husband, and that she'd make sure I paid for this. I watched her leave, feeling a strange mix of satisfaction and dread. I knew this wasn't over. She'd fight me tooth and nail, probably try to drag me through the mud, spin stories, and manipulate the legal process. But I was ready for her. I'd spent days preparing, gathering everything I needed to expose her lies and protect my assets. Over the next few days, I moved quickly. I contacted a different lawyer, someone more aggressive, and started the divorce proceedings. I also hired a forensic accountant to trace all her financial moves. If she was trying to set up some scheme to steal my inheritance or hide assets, I wanted to find out. I also told my private investigator to keep an eye on her, just in case she tried to do something sneaky. I didn't trust her anymore, and I knew she'd try to manipulate the situation to her advantage. Meanwhile, Lisa was doing her best to play the victim. She started calling me controlling and paranoid, claiming I was trying to ruin her reputation. She even accused me of spying on her, which was true, but I had the evidence to back everything up. She's the kind of woman who lies so convincingly that even her friends started to doubt me. But I didn't care. I knew the truth, and I had the proof to back it up. One day, I caught her in another lie. She said she was at a spa with her friends, but I found pictures on her phone of her and Mark at a fancy hotel, holding hands, smiling like they were in love. I couldn't believe how brazen she was. She thought she could just erase her tracks, but I had everything documented. That day, I realized she was willing to do anything to keep her affair and secure her financial future, at my expense. It was a defining moment. I knew I had to stay strong, no matter how much it hurt. I wasn't just fighting for my money anymore. I was fighting for my dignity. I started planning my next move, how to get her out of the house, how to protect my inheritance, and how to make sure she didn't walk away with a single cent of what I worked so hard for. I also started thinking about how I'd rebuild my life after this mess. I'm not going to lie, it's been a brutal few weeks. The betrayal cuts deep. I keep asking myself how I missed all the signs, how I let her get so far. But I also know I can't change the past. All I can do now is fight for what's mine and move forward. I've learned a lot about trust, deception, and the kind of people some women are willing to become when they think they can get away with it. I don't regret confronting her, even if it's been painful. I just wish I'd seen the warning signs earlier. Do you want me to keep going? The court hearings were a nightmare. Lisa and her lawyer tried every trick in the book to drag things out, spin stories, and make me look like the villain. She kept claiming I was abusive, controlling, and that I was ruining her reputation. Meanwhile, I had all the evidence, texts, emails, photos, and a solid lawyer who knew how to counter her lies. The judge wasn't convinced by her theatrics, but it was clear she was desperate. She kept throwing accusations, trying to sway the court's opinion, but I stayed calm. I knew I had the truth on my side. One of the biggest battles was over the inheritance. I had to prove I was the rightful owner of the property, and I hired forensic accountants to trace every dollar spent and every asset transferred. Lisa did her best to claim she was entitled to half of everything, even the inherited property. She argued she contributed equally to our marriage, even though I knew she was planning her escape while secretly working on her scheme. I had to fight hard to keep her from claiming my inheritance, and it wasn't easy. She hired her own team of lawyers trying to find loopholes, but I was prepared for that. Meanwhile, I kept gathering more evidence of her affair with Mark. I found more photos, more messages, and even recordings of her talking about her plans to secure the deal with her boss. I was surprised at how reckless she was being, thinking she could get away with everything. I realized she was so caught up in her greed and her affair that she didn't care about the consequences. Her lies were crumbling, and I knew. It was only a matter of time before the truth came out fully. The emotional toll was heavy. Every day, I felt like I was walking a tightrope, trying to stay strong for myself, but also feeling the sting of betrayal. I'd trusted her with my life, my savings, my future. And now, I was left with nothing but a broken heart and a mountain of legal battles. I wondered if I'd ever be able to look at her again without feeling disgusted. I started to question everything, how I missed the signs, how I was so blind to her true nature. It was painful to realize that the woman I loved was capable of such deception. One night, I found out she'd been secretly transferring money out of our joint account into her own. I caught the transactions just in time. That was a wake-up call. I immediately froze her access to our accounts, hired a forensic accountant to audit all her financial dealings, and started preparing to take her to court for theft and fraud. I couldn't let her get away with stealing my inheritance or any other money I'd worked for. She thought she was smart, but I was one step ahead now. The hardest part was seeing her try to manipulate the situation, even as everything was falling apart. She'd call me names, accuse me of being a bad husband, and blame me for everything that went wrong. She even tried to turn our friends against me, spreading rumors about how I was controlling and possessive. It didn't work. People saw through her lies, and my lawyer made sure everything was documented. I was determined not to let her gaslight me or make me feel guilty. I knew the truth, and I had the evidence. I also started planning my next moves outside the court. I hired a private investigator to keep tabs on her, to see if she was trying to hide assets or make any other sneaky moves. I wasn't going to give her an inch. I wanted to be ready for whatever she threw at me. I also began talking to a financial advisor, figuring out how to protect what I still had and rebuild my life after this chaos. I realized I'd been too trusting, too naive. But now I was more cautious, more hardened. The thing about betrayal is that it changes you. I used to believe in loyalty, in honesty. Now I see that some people are just out for themselves, willing to lie and cheat if it benefits them. I've learned that the only person I can really trust is myself. And I've also learned that sometimes you have to destroy what's broken to rebuild something better. I'm not sure how this will end, but I know I won't let her ruin me. I'll fight for what's mine, for my future, and for the dignity that she tried to take away. Do you want me to keep going? The court date finally arrived, and I was ready. I knew Lisa would come prepared to spin her lies, but I had everything documented. The judge listened carefully as my lawyer laid out the case, proof of her affair, her attempts to hide assets, the transfer of money, and the evidence that she was planning to steal my inheritance. Lisa's lawyer tried to throw in last-minute tricks, claiming I was controlling and that she deserved half of everything, but my lawyer shot it down fast. We had the facts, the recordings, the financial statements, and the witnesses. When the judge finally made her decision, I felt a wave of relief. The court confirmed my ownership of the inherited property, protected it from Lisa's claims. They also awarded me full custody of the house and assets, and Lisa was ordered to pay a significant portion of the legal fees because of her frivolous claims and misconduct. It was a huge win, but it didn't erase the pain of everything I'd been through. Still, I felt like I was starting to regain control. After the ruling, I moved quickly to cut all ties. I changed locks, froze any joint accounts, and made sure Lisa couldn't access anything she shouldn't. I also filed for divorce, and the process moved faster than I expected. Throughout it all, I kept a close eye on her. She was furious, throwing tantrums, trying to manipulate the situation, but I stayed firm. I knew she was desperate, and I refused to let her derail my plans. The aftermath was a mix of relief and anger. Lisa's true nature had come out, and I saw her for what she really was, a manipulative, selfish woman willing to destroy everything for her own gain. I couldn't help but feel betrayed, but at the same time, I was proud of how I handled everything. I had fought tooth and nail for my rights, protected my inheritance, and exposed her lies in court. It was a brutal lesson in trust and deception, but I was still standing. The most surprising part was the support I received from friends and family. Many of them knew about Lisa's behavior but never said anything. Now, they told me they saw her true colors all along. That gave me some comfort, knowing I wasn't crazy or paranoid. I also started focusing on myself. Therapy helped, and I began rebuilding my confidence. I realized I'd been so focused on her that I lost sight of my own happiness. Looking back, I see this whole ordeal as a wake-up call. It opened my eyes to how dangerous some people can be when they're driven by greed and selfishness. I learned to trust my instincts more and to be cautious with whom I let into my life. I also learned that fighting for what's right is worth it, even if it's painful. I don't regret confronting her, even if it's been one of the hardest experiences I've ever gone through. Now I'm slowly moving on. I've started new projects, focusing on my career and my future. The inheritance is safe, and I've put everything in motion to rebuild what I lost, better and stronger. I hope sharing this story helps someone else catch the warning signs early, because betrayal cuts deep, but you can come out the other side. Trust your gut, gather your evidence, and never let anyone take what's yours without a fight. Would you like me to finish with the final part? Looking back now, I realize that this whole nightmare taught me more about myself than I ever expected. I've learned that betrayal can come from the person you trust the most, and it can hit you like a freight train when you least expect it. Lisa's lies, her manipulations, her outright theft, those things didn't just hurt my wallet, they shattered my sense of security. But out of that chaos, I found a new strength I didn't know I had. I learned to stand up, fight back, and protect what's rightfully mine, no matter how much it hurts. One of the biggest lessons I've taken away is that you can't let someone else's greed and deception define you. I was naive, trusting her blindly, thinking she was the woman I married, but she proved to be someone entirely different. Now I see that honesty and loyalty are rare commodities, and I need to be more careful about who I let into my life. I've become more cautious, more guarded, but also more aware of my worth. I refuse to be a victim anymore. I am reclaiming my life piece by piece. The process was exhausting, emotionally, financially, legally. But in the end, I knew I did the right thing. Protecting my inheritance, my property, and my sanity was worth every sleepless night and every dollar spent. The fight wasn't just about money. It was about standing up for myself, for my dignity, and for the future I deserve. I want others to know that even when it feels like everything is falling apart, you can find a way to rebuild. You just have to be willing to fight for it. Now, I'm at a point where I can finally breathe easier. I've moved out of the chaos, and I'm starting to enjoy life again. I've realized that happiness isn't about possessions or status. It's about peace of mind and knowing you're true to yourself. I've learned to trust my instincts more, to listen to that little voice that warns you when something's wrong. Most importantly, I've learned that revenge isn't about destroying someone else. It's about reclaiming your power and making sure justice is served. If you're in a situation like mine, I hope this story gives you some hope. Trust your gut. Gather evidence. Don't be afraid to fight for what's yours. It's not easy and it's going to hurt, but in the end, you'll come out stronger. Sometimes the biggest betrayal can lead to the greatest personal growth. I've come out of this battered but better, more aware of what I deserve and ready to move forward. Life's too short to be held hostage by someone else's lies. Stand tall, stay strong, and never let anyone steal your peace or your inheritance. That's the end of my story. Thanks for listening.